Two. I am your host, Timothy. And today we're going to be dealing with a subject that has been really difficult for me to confront and face, and that's why there's been such a lull episodes. It's been really hard for me to confront, which is what I'm dealing with at the moment. So I want to try and talk about that today in a healthy and constructive manner. And again, I can only speak for my situation. What caused it, what the roots of my abandonment wound and fear is, that was compounded later in life, and it played its part in the development of borderline, but then also how having borderline compounds that fear of abandonment, and it becomes this vicious cycle until I was ultimately abandoned myself. And now I'm trying to come to terms with the role that I played in that, in terms of the self-abandonment that preceded the actual abandonment, all the emotional wounds that preceded it, and been a result of it. So I hope that you find some value in what I'm saying today. I hope that if you are dealing with anything in your way, that you find some solace. Before we begin, I need to start with the usual disclaimer that in no way, shape, or form am I a mental health practitioner trying to deal with his own mental health diagnosis of borderline personality, depressive disorder, and anxiety. And then also trying to come to terms with the fact that last year I attacked life as a result of serious relationship and emotional trauma. So I hope that today's episode is informative. I hope that you find something of value and of use. Whatever you are dealing with, I hope that you find the strength to deal with it, and to face it, and to overcome. And whatever it is, this too shall pass. So let's dive in. So as with anything, there's always an origin, right? There's a cause. And abandonment starts at an early age. So for me, there was early neglect, feeling unwanted and emotionally unseen by formative years. There are many things that I can remember in terms of things that was said, how I was treated, how I was forgotten. And there were things that I had that forced myself to not remember. And not that. This leads to or creates a sense of misaligned and broken expectations, because there's a belief that your personal needs are secondary because of how you were treated. Instances with dad was made to feel that was of no consequence how I felt. He didn't like me as a person. As a child, I felt that my father didn't like me. And it wasn't just a hunch, it was how he treated me and the things that he said, and not just to me, but to his friends, and how he treated his friends' kids over me. Sitting here trying to cry about that now, I just that's what it was, and what was part of the foundation. It was also very conditional. If and when I did get love from my father, it was at like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning when he was drunk his mind trying to tell me that he cared about me and he loved me. I'm just not trying to hear that at that time of the morning. So it was an irritation when he tried to convey feelings. You learn to understand that love isn't what you thought it was. Love is an inconvenience. Love is something that you've got to endure in order to earn scraps. And later in life, when I was 19, 20 years old, or young man, you're still developing, your brain is still developing, it's still changes that are taking place. I lost my first girlfriend, my first real love. I mentioned that before. It saddled me with a lot of guilt. Whether justified or unjustified. I felt guilty, and I blamed myself for her death. Wait, for a long time. And there's still a part of me that feels that guilt, completely honest. And just compounded that fear and created more sense of hypervigilance and anxiety relationship, because firstly, I don't deserve anything good. When I do have something good, it's going to be taken away from me. So you're on edge from the get-go. Because you are working with an operating system that has borderline hardwired into it, there's a vulnerability to manipulation there. Because of that emotional neglect, the fear of loss makes it so much easier to stay and want to prove yourself in an unhealthy relationship and to hold on to unhealthy patterns. Because of what we were both going through, there was a lot of emotional volatility. I feel a sense of, like, I don't know, injustice is the word, I suppose, because I feel like having borderline means that I'm unfairly saddled with the burden of being the irrational one, the emotional one, the unstable one. And that, as much as I do have to own my reactions, that wasn't the case, because there was a fair amount of manipulation, emotional abuse, lies, empty promises. So the reactions that took place were because of what happened, because of being lied to, manipulated. So you respond in a way that's angry because you were manipulated, or you felt that you were lied to, or this person let you down, you didn't keep your word, I kept my word, why didn't you do yours? Why didn't you keep yours? But then your reaction is what is labeled the problem, not the action or the inaction that preceded it. And that was a pattern of blame and that took place throughout our time together. Manipulation. Because of my fear of abandonment, there were no healthy boundaries for me. I allowed for healthy boundaries and I didn't respect my own. I abandoned myself. Now do you stand back, do you see those things and you recognize the patterns, and now you can start to step back and say or see and recognize the part that you played in your own demise, because you allowed the mistreatment, you accepted it, you tolerated it. Maybe you got mad, maybe you reacted, but you kept coming back for it, and that I've got to own. Not all doom and gloom though. It's not all, even though in the moment it feels like it is the end of everything. When that, with people with borderline, there's an expression, your favorite person, right? And my favorite person abandoned me, pulled my world around her. She was everything to me, everything. And when she told me on that day that I had no value, that I served no purpose, bearing in mind that this is my wife telling me this. It's not just my girlfriend, it's not just someone. This is my wife, for whom I've sacrificed myself. And at that moment, I was battling depression, and I was suicidal. I was hurting, and I was probably as low as I thought I could ever be, not knowing I would plunge much lower. To be told those things, to be said that you don't matter, and then to have the action of discard, the words to be so brutally thrown aside. I've got to forgive myself for what I did to myself, and I've got to accept that. It's hard because a lot of it is fixated and focused on the other person. How could you say that to me? How could you treat me that way? I would never treat you that way. It's stuck on that, and you can't move forward. Because yeah, maybe you wouldn't have treated them that way. Maybe you were a better person. Yeah. What does that matter now? What does that change? You still sat there in that hospital, waking up having to deal with the guilt of trying to take your own life. You opened the door on that darkness. No one else. Doesn't matter what they did, doesn't matter what they said. Choice. Because I opened that door, suicide is an option for me now. Talked about it multiple times. The only way that I'm ever going to free myself of that moving forward, releasing myself from the pain, the guilt, and the agony of what has happened. So I need true self-preservation. Doing a decision to move forward, not as an act of admission of failure, essential boundary in order to protect myself, to protect my daughter, my own personal safety, because I cannot stay tethered to somebody who didn't care if I lived or died. So moving away from environments that mirror my early childhood where there was emotional neglect, making better choices, recognizing red flags, and enforcing boundaries. I can only do that if I believe in my value. Because if I don't think I'm worth it, then I'm going to cave. That's hard. That's the difficult part for a lot of us. Because you want so much for someone to love you, care about you, all you want. And it's really hard knowing that what you want is a good risk that you're going to mess it up because of who you are, because you've got borderline. It comes with this inherent instability. Only way that I can hope that I will find love again and have someone who will actually love me and treat me in the way that I deserve. Focus on my recovery. If I suppress, if I ignore, if I to blame what happened on the other person, someone is the most beautiful thing that we can do in our lives. To love, to give love. It is a privilege to love someone, to share life. And I thought that was worth it all. I thought it was worth giving everything for. It's a romantic notion that love is worth everything. Maybe I tried to hold on to that because I lost love before. Should have done more. Sold myself out. And I still ended up in the same place. Ended up being so. That's one of the things that I need to remember, and something that I also need to forgive myself for. I need to remind myself that I made decisions, and yes, I've made bad decisions, and maybe I chose to sell myself out for someone. I also know why I chose to do that. I chose to believe in them, and that they were telling me the truth about what they were committed to doing. Forgive myself for not knowing what I know now in hindsight, and that's not always easy either. I hope that there is something, I don't know, maybe this was just for me to get this off my chest and get it out. About talking about things to start moving forward. If you found something of value, I do appreciate that. I really do, because I want this to be a platform where someone else can learn, where someone can see something and maybe change something in their own lives and not have to make the mistakes that I did. Face the real battle that I do with mistakes because of my choices. So what you deal with, no matter what you face, and I was reminded of this yesterday. I wanted to kill myself yesterday. I felt so low. Healing is not a straight line, and I think we all need to remember that. Whenever we're dealing with something, it's never just going to be a path from A to B. But I sincerely hope that you found something of help, something of use. If you are dealing with anything, if you are struggling, please don't forget that there are support lines that you can use. I would sincerely advise, please make sure that you contact SADAG on 0800 567 567. You can speak to somebody and get help. Please do not wait until it's too late. Please do not wait until you feel like you are being swallowed. I know it's easy to say, different thing to do when you are in the midst of it, because I am in the midst of something that feels like it's swallowing me, but you have to be able to sit in the discomfort of it and ride out those emotions too. Because if you aren't able to do that, then they are going to get the better of you and it's going to destroy you. So, with that being said, I hope you have a good week. Thank you so much for your time. I hope again there was something of value in here. And just remember, whatever you are going through, good or bad, this too shall pass.